Hello, everybody. Welcome to this webinar. I am so excited that you've been able to join us for what I hope will be a really interesting and informative evening. My name is Jessica, and I'm a client relations manager with Family Source Consultants. Family Source Consultants is a surrogacy agency based in the US, but we work with intended parents from all over the world who, for various reasons, want to pursue surrogacy in the US to build or continue building their family. And I am so thrilled to be joined tonight by two extraordinary women who, after their own complicated and emotional fertility journeys, created an amazing resource called IVFBabble to help others who are going through their own infertility journeys. So Tracey, Bambrough, and Sara Marshall-Page, thank you so much for joining me tonight. It's a pleasure to have you guys here.
Well, thank you for inviting us.
I wish we were able to do this in person, but we are all UK based. And for those of you who are not in the UK, we are in lockdown number 3 at the moment. So we are all doing this from the comfort of our own homes. So apologies in advance if there are any technical difficulties with internet, but as I'm sure the whole world knows, when you have to rely on internet to do everything, it doesn't always work. So fingers crossed we're all okay. But yes, it's lovely for you guys to be here. So Tracey, do you want to start and introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Tracey. I went through a 10-year journey to try and have children and various bumps along the way. But in the end, had amazing, beautiful miracle twin girls, and very much felt after I had them that I didn't want anyone else to go through the same as I had. I can explain more about the journey later, but instead of chatting to Sara, who's a friend, and we sat down when my children were 3 months old and decided we just wanted to ensure that no one else followed that journey, that we could educate people and inform them. But over to you, Sara. Do you want to share your journey?
Yeah. My journey was shorter than Tracey's. I was trying to conceive for about 5 years, and like Tracey, I have now been blessed with my miracle IVF twins, I call them, but they're 10 now. So my journey was a very long time ago, and my experience was very, very different to a lot of men and women who we're talking to today. The one thing that myself and Tracey were really set on doing when we created IVFBabble was breaking the silence and getting people talking and breaking that shame. Because one thing I always mention a lot is that when my daughters were born, I asked my husband not to tell anyone they were IVF babies because I was so ashamed.
Really? That's quite interesting.
Because I didn't feel like a woman. I thought I'd failed as a woman.
And at that time, were you the only person you knew to have gone through IVF and to go through those infertility struggles?
Yes, absolutely. Well, now I know that I wasn't. Now I know that there were people in my neighborhoods that I'm now friends with who were also going through IVF. And actually, there's a lady in 2 streets away who we're good friends with now. Her twins were IVF, and she was going through it at the same time as me. So now we're in this age where we have the ability to talk like we are now to incredible women like you. And I can't wait to hear about your story. By the way, I'm dying to ask you questions. But this is what we want to do. We want to make men and women sort of break that shame. There are so many of us who can't conceive naturally, and it's nothing to be ashamed of. Jessica, you have to, can we please, me and Tracey will come back to our stories, but please can we talk to you about yours?
Yes, absolutely. I mean, yeah, ask away. Well, I guess I'll introduce myself again. So like I said, I'm Jessica, and I am the proud mother of a 10.5-month-old son, who was born with the help of a gestational surrogate. So the reason that I have joined FSC is because I was actually an intended parent with them. My husband and I struggled for about 6 years, I think, to conceive, and it just nothing was working. You know, we went through all the infertility treatments, rounds of IVF, and I mean, one of the things that I think would be interesting to talk about, getting a little bit ahead of myself, is, you know, kind of the emotional struggles and the emotional weight that that puts on people. You know, but for us, it got to a certain point where we decided that actually surrogacy was going to be the route for us to build our family. And so,
Where were you getting at though, in when you were having IVF, what stage, if you don't mind me asking, what stage were you getting at each time?
yeah, absolutely. So
I had to eventually eventually had ICSI, but the sperm just wouldn't penetrate the egg. That's the stage I was getting to. Where, yeah, tell us where you were getting to.
absolutely. So we were actually quite fortunate in our IVF journey, except for the fact that it didn't work. And I think for us, that was the biggest mental struggle. So I responded incredibly well to the medicine, to the protocols. We were getting amazing fertilization rates. I think, you know, the first round that we did, they retrieved 11 eggs, 10 of which fertilized, 5 of which made it to day 5 blastocysts. You know, they were all excellent quality, rated A's and B's. For those of you who have undergone IVF and, you know, kind of know a little bit about the ratings that they give the embryos. So we were getting good results, and then nothing was sticking. You know, the way that I was kind of, that I describe it and was feeling, was that I was throwing darts up against a steel board. You know, so we were getting to the point where we had amazing embryos, amazing blastocysts, and then nothing we could do could make them stick. And so for us, that was the most frustrating part, was that, you know, according to doctors, it should be working. Everything that we were producing was great in their eyes. And there was no diagnosis. You know, that was the other thing for us. It was just unexplained infertility with repetitive implantation failure, which is not a diagnosis. It's just a fancy way of saying what was happening, right? And so for us, that was the biggest struggle, I think, was just that there wasn't anything that we could be doing differently according to the doctors in terms of what medical resources were available to us where we were doing IVF.
How many rounds did you do? How many rounds of IVF did you do?
So we only actually did one, and that was because we did an NHS funded cycle. We were living up in Scotland at the moment, so we were really fortunate. For all of those who are joining us from outside of the UK, the NHS, National Health Service in the UK, will often, if you meet certain criteria, will often fund a number of rounds of IVF. So we did get an IVF funded round on the NHS. But the problem was, with doing that, you have such a long waiting period. You know, you go on a wait list in order to join, you know, so the wait list took us about a year, during which we were obviously trying and, you know, undergoing lots of other investigations. They discovered that I had polyps, but they didn't really think that made a difference. But, you know, I still had to undergo the surgery to remove the polyps. And then it, you know, after getting off the wait list, it was another number of months before we actually started our cycle. And then with 5 blastocysts, we ended up taking, it was over a year before all of them were transferred. And so by that point, I mean, it was only one cycle, but it was 5 blastocysts. And for us, that was a 2.5-year process. And it just was so emotionally draining that we, you know, at that point, we had to take a step back and decide for our own mental health what was going to be the best way forward for us to continue building our families. And we decided, we were very fortunate that we had the ability to pursue a surrogacy journey. But we decided that even though some doctors are saying, well, you know, you can continue trying, the emotional aspect for us was too much of a burden. It was weighing too heavily on us in our everyday lives to continue trying without any changes possible that we felt could help us.
Who first mentioned surrogacy to you?
That's a really good question. It may have been my mom, actually. So I mean, I'm in England, but I'm originally from the US, and I think surrogacy there is not, particularly now, you know, it's certainly not common, but it definitely does not have the stigma that I think can sometimes be attached to it in the UK.
Yeah.
There are, for better or worse, a number of celebrities who have had children through the surrogacy process. So it's a little bit more in the common, what's the word that I'm looking for? Common dialogue between people. So it was certainly something that was suggested to us. And like I said, I think it was my mom. And so we did consider, our three options were: do we continue with IVF? Do we pursue adoption? Or do we pursue surrogacy? And so that conversation, kind of started once we had gone through all 5 embryos and we're deciding which path to take next.
Is there like, and how do you remember how you felt when you realized that you would then have to change your path, that actually you had to do something differently? Was there like a, tell me how you felt.
No, it's fine. In some ways it was relief, actually, because I was feeling quite hopeless at that time. We had been doing the infertility journey, the constant visits to the hospital, where we were living was in the maternity ward. The infertility clinic was 1 floor up from the maternity ward, so I would be having weekly appointments, going in and seeing women about to pop, which probably didn't help my emotional state at all. But for me, it felt like there was something I could do to change the outcome. And I think that was where I was feeling incredibly hopeless, especially towards the end of that round of IVF, was that there wasn't really anything that they were saying that we should be doing differently, because according to their statistics, we should have been pregnant. It should have worked. Something should have happened. And that feeling of helplessness and hopelessness, once I realized that there was a different path that I could pursue, it felt quite powerful, actually.
So where do you even, I'm so sorry, T, you go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how long did the process take?
The surrogacy process.
Yeah. So from deciding that was what you wanted to do, how did you find, surrogacy agency? Did you check a few? How did it work?
Yeah, absolutely. So once we decided that this was a path that we wanted to pursue, we immediately, like I think most people would do, hopped online and started Googling. And we came up with a list of agencies that we wanted to speak to. And Family Source Consultants was one of them. And so I'm originally from outside of Chicago. And at that point, it was over the Christmas holidays, and we were staying with my family for the holidays. And I had arranged to go in and speak with another agency, actually. And there was a snowstorm, and basically the person who was supposed to meet with us, this was going to be the first person, outside of my family that I was going to speak to about surrogacy, the first professional, the first agency. And they had to cancel instead of asking one of their colleagues to do it. So I remember scrambling around trying to find another agency on my list who was based in Chicago, had an office in Chicago. And Family Source said, right, that's fine. We can make time to see you tomorrow. And so we went and spoke with Tracey, who is our founder and CEO. She had a son through surrogacy 14 years ago. And after her experience with her agency, decided that actually there was a better way to do it, and founded Family Source. And we went and met her on a snowy weekday in Chicago. It was probably about -20 degrees, absolutely freezing. But we came out and just felt very elated because it felt like there was a positive path forward. And so that was how we found FSC. And obviously we spoke with a number of agencies. It's not a process, very much like trying to find the right IVF clinic for yourself. It's something that you want to do your due diligence, you want to get referrals, you want to get recommendations. But from the start, we had such a great experience with the FSC and the staff there. And one of the things that really attracted us to them, and one of the reasons that I work here now, is because so many of the staff members have gone through either infertility struggles of their own, or have been on the other end of it. They've been surrogates, they've been egg donors, they've been somehow involved in it. And so I felt extraordinarily comfortable in the knowledge that not only would it be an incredibly professional agency to, to do this journey with, but that the people there would understand the emotional aspects of, of this path that we were taking. And
did you walk in with any fears?
Sorry?
Did you walk in with any fears?
Oh, tons. I mean, it's,
Like, can you remember them? What's the fears they were?
Oh gosh. I think that, the biggest fear was that it wouldn't work, was because at that point we were still grasping at straws. It was a relief to be able to do something different that we could in some ways control. But there's also that underlying fear that actually maybe we're just not meant to be parents. Maybe there's something intrinsically, maybe our DNA doesn't match. Like maybe there's just something intrinsically wrong with what we're doing. Kind of like what you were saying before, Sarah, there's this just really deep-seated, I think almost primal
yes,
fear and these emotions that come with an infertility journey. And so for me personally, it was that we could go through all of this and it still wouldn't work. And I still wouldn't have that child that I had been wanting for so many years.
And that one fear in amongst all your fears, that fear that, oh my gosh, we not compatible, your DNA, did that rock, like, to stay strong as a couple when you've got those kind of fears? How do you even, sorry, I feel like I'm really, really delving deeply, but how do you even get through that? Like, did you seek counseling or support to, keep you together and just have that extra voice reminding you that you are meant to be together?
Yeah, that's a great question. I mean, I think infertility is one of the things that can be such a, it can be one of the hardest struggles for couples, because it is such an emotive thing. And particularly, culturally, there can be differences. So I'm originally American, my husband's English. There can be different cultural approaches. There's, especially when you're not getting any answers, it's, it just pervades your entire life. It really does. And so for us, we did actually, when we first did our round of IVF, the NHS funded cycle, they had a psychologist that at the hospital that we could go see. So we did book an appointment, and actually it made it worse because, which I was, in America, psychology is going to therapy is not a big deal, right? My mom's a psychologist. So I wholeheartedly believe in the power of therapy and speaking to somebody. But this particular therapist, she basically spent the entire time saying, well, it might not work. It might not work. Have you thought about the fact that it might not work? And, we were just starting out. So we had, while we're young, we'll be able to do this. And she was only giving us the negative side. She wasn't giving us any coping strategies. So that was really difficult, actually. And I think that put us off, unfortunately, speaking to a professional for most of our journey. But we're very fortunate in that we've been together for 13 years, so by the time we had started our infertility journey, or trying to get pregnant, we'd been together for so long, we're very good friends. So for us, communication wasn't particularly an issue, but we were very fortunate. And when we do say, actually, we've made it through, hopefully, what's one of the most difficult periods of our lives. And, there were times that it was a struggle for both of us. It's difficult, but I think open and honest communication about how we were feeling was really key for us to be able to go forward. And for most people, I think a therapist would be invaluable. We just happened to have a really poor experience the first time we tried it. So
what else did you, I'm sorry to ask you about your fears. It's only that sometimes when you hear other people's fears, and if they match yours, that sense of comfort, knowing it almost like makes it better when you hear somebody's fear match your own.
Mm-hmm.
What else, if you don't mind me asking, did you fear about the surrogacy journey that you now realize, you know, was okay?
Yeah. Oh gosh, I mean, obviously I look back on it with very rose tinted glasses because we had an amazing journey. You know, my son, who is just, no offense to my husband, is the love of my life, you know, was born. We had such a fantastic surrogate. You know, she and I are still very close. You know, we text like once a week. You know, we had a great journey. But I think going into it, there's a lot of moving parts. So it felt quite overwhelming. And for me, particularly when a lot of the doctors were saying, oh, but you're still young, you should, you know, there's no reason why the IVF isn't working. So are you guys trying, you know, to go to a different route too soon? It felt like they were invalidating my feelings and the decision that my husband and I had made together as a couple about the way forward, that we, you know, where we wanted to take control. You know, but I think those fears did pierce. You know, it was, are we, you know, are we doing the right thing? Is this something that we should be pursuing? Again, is it going to work? You know, is this too complicated? But you know, in the end, it was, I wouldn't change it for the world. You know, it was absolutely the right decision for us. But you know, I think there's also a lot of guilt swirling in there. You know, I because for us, you know, the problem, we think, we still don't know, but we think, you know, was the fact that embryos just weren't implanting. So whether or not it was an issue with my uterus, obviously wasn't an issue with the embryos because they did implant in our surrogate. You know, so I felt kind of like you were talking about, Sarah, you know, just this overwhelming sense of guilt that something was wrong with my body, that I just wasn't able to, you know, provide these kids that, you know, for my husband, which is a horrible feeling. Particularly, you know, it sounds incredibly old-fashioned. You know, obviously my entire life is not based around the fact whether or not I can carry a child, but there is something incredibly
So how did you feel when your embryo implanted in your surrogate? Did you, obviously the elation because it worked, but then was there also that sense of, damn, I wish, you know, that kind of, like you just said, that guilt?
At that point, it was actually fear. For me, it was still that, okay, but you know, it's implanted, and I had 2 miscarriages myself. You know, so for me, it was, okay, it's implanted. That's a relief. That's that hurdle. But there are so many other hurdles that we actually have to get to before I can hold my baby. So yes, it was really exciting. But I think the fear was there. But I mean, it's interesting what you're, you know, I guess for me, that guilt that it wasn't going to be me carrying the baby, it came earlier. It came before implantation. It was when we were making the embryos to, you know, to use in a surrogate. I remember, you know, for me at that point, I had kind of thought I was over the guilt. You know, I was focusing all my attention on the end result, which was having a baby. And in surrogacy, you have to, whether you're, well, as an intended parent, you do have to do some psychological screening before basically any agency or fertility clinic will work with you. And, you know, it's just a protective measure, right? You know, it's a protective measure. And so we had this psychological session with another psychologist, and we came out of it, and I had been so focused on the end result that I'd forgotten kind of actually that I wasn't going to be carrying the baby. And there were a few things that, you know, that were brought up in the session. And I just, yeah, again, I felt that overwhelming sense of guilt that I couldn't do this for my husband, you know, and it was, yeah, it was rough. So you know, for me, it came earlier in the process, pre-implantation. But I definitely felt those feelings.
How did you know that your surrogate was the one for you?
Yeah,
So we put our faith in Family Source. The way that they match intended parents with surrogates is great, because they ask you, there's a questionnaire that as an intended parent you fill out, and it's about you as a person, you as a couple, what kind of parents you're going to be, what life you're going to provide for your child, what you think your spouse, if you have a spouse, is going to be like as a parent. Because obviously there are single parents who do this as well. But there are a lot of really difficult questions, in terms of what would you do if it turns out that the fetus has some chromosomal abnormalities, do you want one or two? And so you have to have all these really difficult conversations with your partner before, while you're filling this out. And then Family Source has surrogates, and they match you based on those really important criteria. But for us, it was amazing, because they match you on those criteria, but they also match you on so much more, just in terms of personality, the kind of relationship that you want with your surrogate, what sort of communication you want. And so it was interesting, for me, actually, I became incredibly close to her during the pregnancy, because, because we were very similar, we became quite good friends. And, we're not texting all the time, obviously, because we both had lives, but I felt very much a part of the pregnancy, which was really nice, being an ocean away.
Oh, God. I tell you, surrogates are angels.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, she and all the other surrogates are, just some of the most selfless people I think I could ever meet. They do this out of the goodness of their heart. And they are, it's incredible. And I was, my husband and I were very lucky to be in the room when our son was born. He was born in March, like at the beginning of the pandemic. So we were very lucky. But, in addition to all those 9 months, I saw everything in that delivery room. And I can't, you have to be such an amazing person to want to give that gift to somebody. It's incredible what they do. And like, there are literally no words that I can ever, I could not have enough words for the rest of my life to thank her for the gift that she's given me.
Does she have children herself?
Yes, she has a daughter, and she's actually expecting a son, her own, not for somebody else, in the spring.
What an incredible woman. Because we find that with women that have gone through, infertility or IVF and then have children, we found so many, we've made so many friends with people who want to give back because they have struggled, and then they want to do something. They want to like help other people or try and avoid the pain that they went through. But a surrogate is a totally different level, because that's just, a woman just wanting to, not having had the experience of infertility, just wanting to do that incredible thing for somebody else. And
well, it's interesting that you say that, because a lot, not all certainly, but a lot of surrogates and egg donors, they do it because they've seen family, they've seen friends struggle, and they recognize that actually this is, they're, if I can say it, they're fortunate enough not to have gone through those struggles. And this is something that they can do to maybe not necessarily help that friend or that family member, because for whatever reason, hopefully they've overcome it, but they can help other people. And, infertility struggles are so common. And, this, as you were getting at, it's incredible the community that you're able to build up while doing it, just because it is so common and so many people are experiencing something similar. So I think that's what's so, just another amazing thing about surrogates, is that even though they haven't experienced it themselves, they are empathetic enough to recognize the pain that other people are going through, and are willing to help in a way that a lot of people wouldn't be.
So you're still in touch, you still see your surrogate, or you speak to your surrogate, you say?
Yes, so my surrogate lives in the US, as do all the surrogates that Family Source works with, just because of the legal system. So we haven't seen her since, gosh, I think we left about 3 days after my son was born. So we haven't physically seen her since then, but we do keep in touch, and we usually text once every week or so, just to keep in touch. And for me, for myself and my husband, it's going to be a really important. She and her whole family actually were just so incredible and so welcoming, and they're going to be, it's a really important part of my son's story. I don't think it's something that I want him to be proud of and to celebrate. And he kind of has this extra extended family that hopefully at some point when we can travel again, we'll be able to meet again in person.
My daughters know that they are IVF babies. Have you explained to yours that they're IVF?
Mine are just 6. So we're starting to get to little conversations about things, but I haven't gone into it like you have with yours. Yeah, you should share that story when they were asking about it, Sara.
Yeah, how did you introduce it to them?
Well, they asked me what IVFBabble is, and I explained to them that I explained to them about how babies are made, and I said, but not everyone can make a baby this way. And so I explained a bit about the science, and I said, but that science is really confusing. So sometimes you just need someone to talk you through it, and you need some friends that can help support you through it, and that's what IVFBabble is. And they sort of just like shrugged it off. I'm like, oh, right. So we're IVF babies. And I was walking on the street once, and this old man saw my girls, and he went, oh, you've got twins. He said, does it run in the family? And because I just didn't want to stop and talk, I just went, yeah, and carried on walking. And as we walked off, my girl said, Mummy, why didn't you tell him that the reason we're IVF babies, it's not that it runs in the families. You had 2 embryos put back in. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is incredible. But it's there are all these different paths to parenthood. They are, it's just how it is today. It's just how it is. And I want, well, my children are happy and confident that that's how they came into this world.
Do they know other children who are also IVF babies?
Yeah. But again, it's just, well, that's how it is. When you look at the percentage of how many people, can't conceive naturally, it's the norm now. Well, kind of. It's getting there. The more and more we keep talking about it.
Well, it's 1 in 6 people worldwide. 1 in 6 people worldwide is a lot of people. It's super important to break the silence on it. I mean, for instance, for my journey, it was 10 years.
Wow.
So I had an ectopic pregnancy. Then I started having slight pains in my lower abdomen. I was referred to a gynae. They said it's wear and tear. Then I was referred to another gynae. They said I had a digestive problem. And then I was told to go and see someone else, and they said, it's your age. It's like, okay. And so actually we did go ahead with 1 IVF, and I didn't prepare for it. I just went into it. I was back at work that afternoon, and I remember someone saying, the only person I'd shared about the IVF too, and he came up to me, he said, you shouldn't be here now, you should just be relaxing, what are you doing coming in? It's like, what? And a few days later, it's almost like I blocked it, and a few days later it hadn't worked, and then I really felt a sense of, I'm just going to collapse here, and then no, bring yourself together. Anyway, the journey on from that was I had 5 miscarriages after that. And then we were thinking, okay, and I think what I should say here with the 5 miscarriages, I think after the first couple, I remember almost shutting off from Ben, my husband. who sort of, oh no, this is so sad. And I'm like, it's fine, we can get through this. And my wall was coming up and up and up. I'll come back to that in a minute. But then we started looking at adoption. We thought, okay, this is, maybe this is the route to go. So we went down the line of adoption. That was quite a long process, and got to the point where they would send people over to check out your home and etc. etc. And then we suddenly said, look, there's 2 more embryos. Why don't we just try this just one more time? And just by chance, we were having dinner with someone and they said, oh, have you ever spoken to so-and-so consultant? I'm like, no, not at all. You need to go and see him. So we went to go and see this amazing consultant who literally almost immediately said, I think you've got endometriosis. And so you've had an ectopic, have you? And you've had this and that. Okay, let's just check your tubes are okay. And so sent me off to go and have hysterosalpingogram. I can never say that. And he said, you know, hey. And then basically he said, okay, you know, I would say you have endometriosis, but let's do laparoscopy. So on and on. To cut a long story short, I had a polyp, endometriosis, a blocked tube, and a thyroid issue. And my husband, but we had embryos, but he, you know, we found out that there had also been another issue there. But anyway, basically we decided to go ahead and take the risk of those embryos being transferred. And it was, I think, under 2% chance of it working. But this particular, the second IVF, I decided drink green juice until it's coming out of my ears. I would do acupuncture, it just kind of get healthy, and just adopted a whole different thought process around it. And in fact, when I did go ahead with the IVF, I was kind of calm. I was sort of, you know, if it works. And I remember the guy that was putting the embryos back, he said, well, one of them's okay, but the other one, I think we should just do one. And I said, no, do 2. And so anyway, in the end, he put 2 back, and unbelievably, I fell pregnant. And yeah, so it was quite a journey. But the key thing from that 10 years was it was about getting in front of the right consultant who gave me the right diagnosis, who then got me in the best shape that, you know, I could be, to then in effect allow that to happen. And nothing's guaranteed with IVF, but having the right diagnosis and looking after yourself, it's super important. But it was a long journey. And actually, when I had the girls, so coming back to me putting my brick wall up, I remember Ben just kind of at one point, just almost sort of, or just a huge hug, and then just bursting into tears. And he said, you know, I knew you were in such pain and you wouldn't allow me to help you. Get me going. Over to you, Sara.
I mean, it's hugely emotive. I'm not surprised you're crying. We refer to this like as the scar of infertility. You know, so, you know, the 3 of us are blessed with our children, but what we've been through to get those children is still deep and buried inside, and all the tears and the pain and the guilt and the anger and the frustration is, you know, it's all still in there. And it comes,
absolutely.
and I still, and it makes me so cross with myself, I still get angry when I hear about people getting pregnant naturally.
Yeah.
Because I feel jealous. I mean, how ridiculous. It's so ridiculous, but it is a scar. I never had counseling, so I never dealt with anything. So it's just all shoved in there, squashed down.
Yep.
And you know, but we are, you know, we've all got different paths and we're all blessed. And
no, I can completely understand. I mean, yeah, when you're talking about that wall, Tracey, I mean, you know, it's I think it's only natural, right? You know, it's, you have to, it's that instinct to protect yourself and protect your feelings. And
Yeah.
I mean, you know, like I said, you know, I had 2 miscarriages. I went through 6 years, and that was hard enough. I can't imagine, particularly being misdiagnosed. That must have been so infuriating, particularly when you found, as you say, that right consultant, and they knew almost straight away, you know, kind of what your difficulties were and how to help you overcome it. Because did that make you so angry and make you feel like you had lost those years, or?
No, I think for me, I've always kind of thought you just got to try and grab the positive, just keep on at the positive. And in fact, that second time when I went through IVF, I actually chatted to five girls, 4 of whom hadn't told me they were going through IVF at the same time. I was the only one that was saying, hey, guess what? This is what I'm doing. And although the 5th, one of the 5 happened to be had become a really close friend of mine. And really sadly, she'd gone through 5 IVFs that hadn't worked. We ended up going through, so my second IVF, her 6th, and then basically hers didn't work and mine did. And so out of those 5, she was the one that I knew was going through that. And on from that, so super sadly, she actually, when she found out I was pregnant, she said, I'm really sorry, I just can't talk to you anymore. And that was a little bit of a drive in my head as well, with IVFBabble and Sara obviously desperately wanting to do something. The 2 of us came together because we just kind of thought information, the opportunities, and surrogacy, you know, it could have been an option for me as well.
Girls, there's a question here. Like Tracy's just talking about friends, and there's a question here. Having gone through fertility struggles to conceive your families, what do you feel would have been the best way for your family and friends to support you? Would you have preferred them to talk about it, ask questions, or do the opposite and completely avoid the question?
It's a great question.
It's a great question.
And you know, for me, I mean, it's a little bit of both, actually. And that, you know, because I am such a huge advocate for talking about infertility struggles, you know, and that's one of the reasons that we're all here today, is because, you know, having gone through it, we want to destigmatize it. We want to get rid of any shame attached to it, but it is still such a personal and hugely emotive thing that you're going through. So for me personally, there were people that I really wanted to talk about it, and I was happy for them to ask me questions. And then there were other people that it wasn't that I was ashamed talking about it, and I certainly would talk about it with lots of people, you know, probably to the point that it made them uncomfortable sometimes, because I was talking about things that maybe they weren't used to talking about. But there is a certain, you know, if you're constantly getting asked questions about it, particularly like, for example, if you're going through a cycle and everybody knows the day that you're going to be either, you know, going for a retrieval or you're transferring, and your phone is blowing up because people are asking you, how did it go? How did it go? It can get a little overwhelming. So I guess my personal advice would be, you know, find the people that you are most comfortable with and keep it an open topic with conversation. And, you know, that worked really well for me, because it meant that I felt comfortable talking about it. I felt comfortable when they were asking me questions, but I didn't feel overwhelmed by the entire world asking me, you know, what is an incredibly personal thing. So I don't know, how did you guys deal with it? You know, what would your advice be?
Dee, do you want to go?
Well, the first time round, I didn't really speak to anyone, apart, well, one person at work, that was it. And my parents-in-law knew. The second time, I probably talked about it to lots of people. Yeah, I kind of shared the journey with lots of people, and I was totally fine about sharing that I was actually going through it. So, yeah, both ways. I don't know. I mean, the second time I felt more comfortable in the ability to be able to share. I don't know. So, I mean, Sara, what about you?
I think looking back, I wanted to be able to talk about how I was feeling. What I didn't want were solutions. What I didn't want were awful kind of just relax, just get some fresh air, just stop thinking about it, take a break. I didn't want any of that. However, what I would have loved were my aunties or my friends just to say, how are you doing? And for me to be able to say, I can't look at pregnant women. I don't want to see babies. I cry when I hear about pregnant, births and pregnancies. I would love to have been able to just, whoa, and for them just to listen. That's what I would have liked. When I look back, I feel sad that I was so mute for most of it, because I was so alone and so deep in the dark clouds. But I didn't say to anyone, is it okay if I talk to you? Is it okay if you ask me now and then? So actually, even though my family knew I was going through IVF, because they didn't know what to say, and I hadn't given them the sort of green flag to be able to ask me, we just didn't. So I would say, try and say to your friends and family, just let me, just now and then, just check in on me, and let me just, if I need to. But I don't need you to. It's an awful thing to say, I don't need you to tell me what to do. You need to find that perfect phrase, because people can turn to us for guidance, and we can point people in the right direction for expert advice. But just use your family for that, their ears and their hugs. Well, when we're allowed to hug, that is. But yeah, everyone's different. It's very, very difficult. Oh, whoever that person was, I want to send them a big virtual hug as well.
Yes, exactly. Same. But also, Sara, don't you agree that, I mean, in a way, that's part of the reason that we created the pineapple pin?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, our little pineapples, these little pineapple pins, and it's just two little pineapples together representing the love and support that the TTC community offer each other. And we wanted a kind of just a little symbol that people could see. If you wear your pineapple pin, it represents the fact that either you yourself have been through, a fertility journey, or you've supported somebody else. And it almost it allows you to see how many lives have been touched by infertility, and it makes you feel less alone. So we've heard stories about, women on the tube, and they've suddenly glanced over and seen somebody else with a pineapple pin. And immediately there's been that connection, and some friendships have been formed out of it. So yeah, it's a very, I think that it's been nicknamed the power pin, the power pineapple pin. But can I just go back and ask you one quick question, because I know we're getting close to an hour. But Jessica, Tracey asked you earlier about how long the whole process lasts, but what I didn't catch was actually in time, how long it was from the moment you thought, right, I'm going to go the surrogacy route, to having yours done.
Yeah, absolutely. Sorry, it's very appropriate that your magazine is named IVFBabble, and we're talking about that today, because particularly when it comes to infertility journeys, I do have a tendency to babble, because there's so much to talk about, actually.
Yeah, Please do this again. We have to do
I know, it's amazing.
We need more than an hour. This is,
Yes,
yeah,
I know.
this is wonderful. So from start to finish, it took us just over 2 years from the time that, well, yeah, so sorry, from the time that we actually signed with FSC as intended parents to our baby being born was just over 2 years. And we had started considering surrogacy, I think, maybe 2 or 3, probably 3 months before, when my husband and I, once we make a decision, once we go down a path, we're gonna go down it. That's just who we are. Some people, it takes them a much longer time to make that decision. And for a surrogacy journey, ours is probably a little bit longer than average. That's simply because we had to, the first surrogate that we were matched with ended up not passing the psych screening. Actually, she did, but her partner didn't. It's really interesting. We were talking a little bit about the emotions and stuff before, but particularly for surrogacy, it's not just the emotions of you as an intended parent, it's the emotions of your surrogate and their family as well. And so our surrogate's partner was supportive, but it came up in the psych screening that the psychologist felt that he was not as invested in the journey as she would have wanted him to be for this to be so successful.
How amazing that how amazing that it's that thorough.
Mm-hmm.
That
Absolutely.
even though there's a delay, I would rather have a delay than get so far down and then see issues then. That's incredible.
Absolutely. And at the time it was incredibly frustrating because you've been doing this for so long, you just want things to go right. So for us, it was such a frustrating setback. And it was nobody's fault. Obviously, we knew it was a possibility. But in hindsight, thank goodness. And because we were paired with our current surrogate, the surrogate that we ended up working with, like less than a week later. And she and her whole family were just, they couldn't have been more invested if they tried. And I still remember, this might make me cry, the first time we went out and visited them, she at that point was about, I think, 15 weeks pregnant with our son. And, we had actually, that was the second transfer. The first transfer took, and again, there was a miscarriage, which pushed the timeline back. But so she was 15 weeks pregnant with our son, and we were, we had gone out to dinner with them and we were saying goodbye, and her husband just gave me like the biggest bear hug. And he was like, I am going to take such good care of her for you. And I nearly, it makes me cry now, but I just really burst into tears because they were just so supportive. Sorry, it is making me cry. And I couldn't have asked for better people to look after my son for the first 9 months. Sorry. This is a great way to end it before I'll just bursting into tears. But yeah, so for me there were moments where it was frustrating. There were moments where things didn't always go to plan. But actually now when I think back on it, like I said, the journey was incredibly positive and I wouldn't change it for the world. And anytime, you were talking, Sarah, about how even now you see people who get pregnant on the first try and it makes you, upset, it makes you angry. And for me, but I guess the best advice that I can give to anybody, the mindset that I've kind of come to try and get over it, whether or not it really works or not. But I count the number of months that we tried, the number of embryos we went through, and without going through surrogacy, without having to go through all of those, we would not have my son. And, I'm sure whatever baby we would have had would have been amazing, but it wouldn't be him. And, we needed to go through all of that for him to arrive. That's fine. That is something that he's just the best, so if that's what it took, that's what it took.
Oh my gosh. How it's such a shame we don't have longer, because for anybody considering surrogacy, especially now in today's world where, we're in lockdown in the UK and, the uncertainty of certain things at the moment. If someone has like a cajillion questions right now about the process, who do they, how do they ask those questions? Who do they ask? Where do they go?
Yeah, they can just get in touch with us. FSC has a website, there's a live chat, just submit your email and somebody will get back to you. And, like I said, one of the great things about FSC is that, so many of us have been through the process. So there's myself, most of the other team that you'll speak to at the very start of the process. Most of us are intended parents who worked with FSC and just had such an amazing journey that we really wanted to help give back to other people. So you're going to be talking to somebody who's been in your shoes. So that's, I can absolutely recommend that. Just reach out. There's people there to help.
Oh my God, yeah. Jessica, you're amazing. You are so inspiring.
Really inspiring.
What did you name your son? Will you share with us?
Yeah, of course. His name is Lincoln.
Oh gosh.
No, well, you ladies are amazing as well. I mean, I wish gosh, I can't believe an hour's gone already. I wish we would have had more time to to speak about IVFBabble and all that you guys provide for the community. And there's a few questions that we haven't gotten to. So, I mean, do you guys, there's 2 questions that we haven't gotten to. So do you guys mind if we try and address them really quickly, just so that people who are watching,
Sure.
So the first one is about male infertility. So obviously we are a panel of 3 women who have gone through infertility for various, with various different causes. What do you guys, I mean, how, obviously, male infertility is something that is a huge, it's a huge issue, and perhaps there's even more stigma attached to it because historically, it's always been considered the woman's problem if infertility, is happening. So what would you guys say to somebody who is going through male infertility? What's your advice?
Well, do you know what one thing that we're trying to do at the moment? Because when you look at the TTC community, is dominated with women. On Instagram, Facebook, it's just women everywhere. So what we're trying to do is encourage more guys to come forward. And so, and it is happening, and there are some really incredible guys out there that have set up support groups. And so we're reaching out to them. Actually, what we've done a few times is given them our social media accounts just to do like a big takeover so that they can start talking about their journeys and what they've done. So if we can do what we did with IVFBabble at the beginning by getting the girls talking, now it's all about, right, come on fellas, you can come forward as well. Because in the past, I think it's not that the guys haven't shown interest, it's just that they've been, like you said, they've been shy and the girls have been asking the questions for them. But if you go onto, especially in our Instagram page, if you scroll down, you'll see we did like a big male, it was a week, not so long ago. And every day we just posted accounts of brilliant men who were supporting other men. So that's certainly one thing. T, sorry, I keep talking over you.
No, I wasn't. But yeah, I certainly since we started, just I think 4 years ago, when we first started, there was, there was an embarrassment, and certainly when we were at fertility shows, we would have guys that might sort of look the other way and just a bit awkward about wanting to speak about things. And now there is this significant difference in and how many times now that guys are actually approaching us and saying, can we share our story? We want to work with you. What can we do? Which is amazing. And we're launching a campaign actually in the next couple of months to give away 10,000 male infertility tests. And equally, we're doing that also in Africa. So to try where there is a massive stigma about the fact that you know, around the world there needs to be education, and it should start early for fertility. It should start at school, so we understand there are timelines, that it could be a 60-40 split, or even more than that on women and men, where the infertility could be. But yeah, so we, you know, we're out there to try and sort of break that stigma, for men and women. So yeah. Very passionate about that.
Jessica, there's another question here. I know this is about male fertility, but can I read it out?
Absolutely.
Having gone through fertility struggles to conceive your families, what do you feel would have been the best? Oh no, hang on, I've done that one. I've gone through 8 rounds of IVF and have a surrogate now. I would love to be able to share my story with IVFBabble when I have success, as I feel it is a story that is not shared enough about. Oh my God, Kelly. All you've got to do is drop me and Tracey an email, and we will welcome
Kelly.
you with open arms. My gosh. You know what we did the other day? We when we had our fertility expo last week, we have like this virtual fertility expo, got one more coming up. And we reached out to people and said, will you send us a video clip of you telling us your fertility story, even if you're still on it now? So Kelly could even send us a little video that we can play at the next expo, or on our social media, or on Babble TV, or a written article. That would be amazing, because you're right. This is exactly what we need to be doing. Sharing these amazing stories. Sorry.
Kelly, sending you so much love.
Yeah. Oh, Kelly, thank you. Oh, Kelly. 8 rounds of IVF. I mean, that takes its toll on a human. 8 rounds.
I was about to say, you, Kelly, you are a superwoman for, for going through all of that. And, you know, for anybody who is going through your own infertility journey, it's, I think that's one of the things that I love most about IVFBabble, is it just provides such a community. And, you know, it's nothing that I would never wish infertility on my worst enemy, but it makes you such a warrior in so many ways. And it's amazing that you guys have, you know, Sara and Tracey have managed to build such an amazing resource, such a fantastic community of people supporting each other through something that is hopefully, you know, the most difficult thing that many of us will experience in our lifetimes. You know, so what you guys have been able to put out there and how you're changing the conversation is just is incredible.
Oh, thank you, Jessica.
That's so kind, but sorry.
Can Kelly drop us a DM on Instagram as well? That's the quickest way to get straight to us, and I can reply to Kelly later.
Okay. So yeah, so if anybody wants to reach out, so you know, family source consultants, please email us. Please go on our website. For IVFBabble, Tracey and Sara, what's the best way to reach you guys to get access to your resources?
We'll go to IVFBabble.com to find our magazine, or IVFBabble, our Instagram page, and just, you know, send us a DM. That's, like I said, that's really quick. We check our DMs every day. Or you can email us info@ivfbabble.com, and someone will always get back to you.
Wonderful. Well, we've gone a little bit over an hour, but thank you guys so much for joining me tonight. It has been an absolute pleasure. I hope we get to do this again soon.
We'd love to. And you're an inspiration, Jessica.
Well, no, you guys are. I mean, you guys are the ones who have started this entire community, you know, which is just, it's amazing. And, you know, thank you so much for the work that you guys are doing to destigmatize infertility and you know, to allow people to find the resources and the inspiration and the community that they need to get through it. So yeah, the work that you guys do is amazing. And thank you to everybody who's joined us. Thank you to everybody who will be watching this afterwards. Any questions, feel free to contact any one of us. And we hope to see you again soon. Have a great evening, everybody.
Sending you so much love.
Thank you.